The morning sun painted the rice fields of New Hanbok Village in golden light as Dae-ho walked the narrow paths between the paddies. Water reflected the sky like broken mirrors, and tiny fish swam between the green rice shoots. He stopped to check the water levels and smiled. The crop would be good this year. Behind him, the village was waking up. Smoke rose from chimneys as families started their breakfast fires. Children laughed somewhere in the distance. A dog barked once, and then went quiet. It was the kind of peaceful morning that made a man forget there was a whole galaxy of trouble beyond this small world. Dae-ho had been the village leader for 7 years now. Before that, he had been other things, but those days felt like someone else's life. Here on Kepler 442b, he was just a farmer who grew rice and vegetables and helped settle the small problems that came up between neighbors. The people trusted him to make fair decisions, and he tried not to let them down. Mi-young was already at work in her workshop when he walked past. Through the open door, he could see her bent over some broken farming equipment. Her dark hair was tied back, and her hands were covered in grease. She had the best mechanical mind in the village and could fix anything from irrigation pumps to the old generator that powered the community center. She looked up and waved when she saw him. "Morning, Dae-ho. Jin-woo brought me another broken harvester yesterday, 3rd one this month. Can you fix it?" "Already did. These machines are simple compared to what I used to work on." She paused, and her eyes went distant for a moment. Then she smiled again. "Want some coffee? I made extra." They sat on her workshop steps and drank coffee from metal cups while the village came alive around them. Hyojin walked past carrying her medical bag. She was headed to check on old Mrs. Park, who had been feeling tired lately. Nothing serious, but Hyojin liked to be careful with her patients. "Any word from the outside?" Mi-young asked. Dae-ho shook his head. Kyung-soo picked up some trader chatter yesterday, but nothing important. A few ships passed through the outer system last week, but they didn't stop. "Good. I like it quiet." "Me too." They finished their coffee in comfortable silence. A group of children ran past, chasing a small robot toy that beeped and flashed colored lights. Their parents would be getting ready for another day of planting or harvesting or the 100 other jobs that kept a farming village running. Dae-ho walked to the communications building, where Kyung-soo spent his mornings listening to radio signals from across human space. The building looked like a simple house, but inside it held equipment that could reach ships halfway across the sector. Kyung-soo said he liked to keep track of shipping schedules and news from Earth. "Anything interesting today?" Dae-ho asked. Kyung-soo looked up from his screens. "Colony ship heading to Proxima, some merchant traffic near the jump points, and something else." "What kind of something else?" "Unknown ships, big ones. They were scanning the outer planets yesterday." Dae-ho felt something cold touch his spine. How big? Hard to say, but their drive signatures were military grade. Ours? No, not human. They looked at each other for a long moment. Dae-ho had hoped those days were over. He had hoped his people could live out their lives growing crops and raising children without ever thinking about war again. "Keep monitoring," he said finally. "Let me know if they come back." He walked through the village trying to look calm, past the school where Unji was teaching a class of 8-year-olds about mathematics, past the clinic where Hyejin was examining a farmer who had cut his hand on a fence wire, past the repair shop where Jin-woo was cursing at a stubborn engine part. Everything looked normal, peaceful, safe. But Dae-ho had learned long ago that appearances could lie. That afternoon, he found excuses to visit certain people. He stopped by the library where Sungmin was organizing books and asked about the weather reports. He visited the school during lunch and talked to Yoon-ji about the children's progress. He checked on the livestock with Yoo-jin, who managed the village's small herd of cattle and sheep. Each conversation seemed ordinary, but each person understood what he was really asking. "Are you ready? Do you remember? Can you still do what needs to be done?" The answers were always the same. A small nod, a knowing look. "We remember." Evening came with purple clouds and the first stars. Families gathered for dinner and the village grew quiet except for the sounds of insects and night birds. Dae-ho walked to his own small house and sat on the porch looking up at the sky. Somewhere out there, unknown ships were moving through the darkness. Ships with weapons and warriors who saw human colonies as targets to be destroyed. He had hoped never to see such ships again. Taewung joined him on the porch. The older man moved quietly despite his size. He had been the village blacksmith for 5 years now, and his hands were strong from working hot metal all day. Those same hands had once held other tools, deadlier tools. "The stars are bright tonight," Taewung said. "Yes, very bright." Kyung-soo told me about the ships. I figured he would. "How long do you think we have?" Daeho considered the question. "If they are who I think they are, then not long. They like to make examples of small colonies. Should we evacuate? Where would we go? And besides, this is our home now." Taewung nodded slowly. "Then we stay." "We stay. Do we tell the families?" "Not yet. Maybe the ships will move on. Maybe. They are just passing through." But even as he said it, Daeho knew it was not true. He had seen too many wars and fought too many battles to believe in lucky chances. When predators found sheep, they did not just look and leave. The two men sat in silence watching the stars. Somewhere among those points of light, their past was catching up with them. The peaceful years in New Hanbok Village had been a gift, but gifts did not last forever. Later that night, Daeho made quiet visits to several houses. He spoke in whispers with people who had been farmers and shopkeepers and teachers for years. People who had almost forgotten they had once been other things. He reminded them where certain tools were hidden, where certain supplies were stored, what certain signals meant. The plans they made that night were simple. If trouble came, they would be ready for it. The village would defend itself. By morning, the alien ships had moved into the inner system. They were scanning planets and taking detailed readings of human settlements. Kyung-soo tracked them carefully and reported their positions every hour. 3 ships, he told Daeho. Destroyer class. They are taking their time, but they are definitely coming this way. How long? 2 days? Maybe 3? Daeho nodded and went to find Mi Young. She was in her workshop again, but now she was working on different projects. The broken farming equipment sat forgotten in the corner while she assembled devices that looked nothing like irrigation pumps or harvesters. "How are we for supplies?" he asked. "Better than they will expect," she said, without looking up from her work. "Much better." The next 2 days passed in strange calm. On the surface, nothing changed. People went about their daily work. Children played in the streets. Families shared meals and evening conversations. But underneath the calm, other things were happening. Messages passed between houses in coded gestures. Certain buildings were quietly rearranged inside. Equipment that had been hidden for years was carefully moved into position. New Hanbok Village prepared for war. The 3 Vorthak destroyers dropped out of hyperspace like metal sharks smelling blood. Their dark hulls gleamed in the light of Kepler 442b's sun as they took positions above the small human colony. Each ship carried enough firepower to turn a city into glass, and their crews had destroyed dozens of human settlements before this one. War Commander Zekthar stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked down at the peaceful planet below. Farms and forests spread out like a green carpet. Small settlements dotted the landscape like scattered coins. It would be easy work to burn it all. "Target the largest human nest," he ordered his weapons officer. "We will make an example of this place," the communications officer spoke up. "Sir, the humans are responding to our presence." "Let them beg for mercy. I want to hear their fear." The reply that came from the planet's surface was not what Zekthar expected. A calm human voice spoke in clear standard language. "This is Daeho of New Hanbok Village. We see your ships. We respectfully decline your implied offer." Zekthar's claws clicked against his command throne. "Implied offer? What does this human mean?" "I believe he means he declines to surrender, sir." Foolish creatures. "Open a channel." The main screen showed the human settlement from orbit. Small buildings and farm fields with no visible defenses, no military installations, no orbital platforms, just a village of soft creatures who grew plants in the dirt. "Human vermin," Zekthar broadcast. "Your existence offends the Vorthak Empire. Prepare for cleansing," the same calm voice replied. "We appreciate your position, War Commander, but we choose to remain here. This is our home. Then you will die in your home, All weapons fire. Energy beams lanced down from the three destroyers. Enough destructive power to level mountains struck the village in blazing columns of death. Zektar watched the display and smiled. Another human nest eliminated, another step toward galactic cleansing. Then the fire stopped and the smoke cleared. The village was still there. Shimmering blue energy fields covered the entire settlement. The Vorthak weapons had struck barriers that appeared as solid as planetary bedrock. Buildings that should have been vapor still stood peacefully among their farms and gardens. "Report!" Zektar snapped. "Sir, the humans have military-grade defensive shields. Class 7 at minimum." "Impossible. Our intelligence said this was a farming colony." "Sir, we are receiving another transmission from the surface." Daeho's voice came through the speakers again, still calm, still polite. "War Commander, your weapons are impressive, but we must ask you to stop shooting at our village. You are disturbing the livestock." Zektar felt his blood heating. "Launch ground forces. I want that village torn apart, building by building. Transport?" Ships dropped from the destroyers like metal eggs. Each one carried 50 Vorthak warriors armed with plasma weapons and battle armor. They would land and kill every human they found. Then they would burn the village and salt the earth. The transports touched down in the fields around New Hanbok village. Warriors poured out in perfect formation, their plasma rifles charged and ready, their armor gleaming in the afternoon sun. They advanced on the village expecting to find terrified farmers hiding in their houses. Instead, they found humans waiting for them. Jinwoo stepped out of his repair shop carrying what looked like an old plasma cutter. But when he pulled the trigger, it fired with the precision and power of a military assault weapon. 3 Vorthak warriors fell before they could return fire. The barn next to Myung's workshop suddenly split apart like opening doors. Inside was a manufacturing facility that definitely had not been there in the orbital scans. Automated defense. Turrets rose from hidden positions and began tracking targets. Haijin emerged from the medical clinic, carrying a weapon that should not have existed on any frontier world. A prototype plasma cannon that fired bursts capable of penetrating heavy battle armor. All around the village buildings were transforming. Grain silos revealed themselves as shield generators. The school's playground equipment folded away to expose weapon emplacements. The innocent farming village became a fortress that would have challenged a full military base. The Vorthak warriors found themselves caught in carefully planned killing fields. Every street corner had been prepared. Every building position had been chosen for maximum defensive advantage. The humans moved with coordination that spoke of years of training and decades of experience. Sungmin appeared on a rooftop with a sniper rifle that picked off Vorthak officers with surgical precision. Yoonji triggered explosive charges that had been hidden in the fields for months. Yoojin led a squad of humans who moved like elite special forces because that was exactly what they were. In space, War Commander Zektar watched his ground assault fall apart. His warriors were being systematically destroyed by what his intelligence had called simple farmers. Distress signals flooded his communications board. "Sir, we are taking heavy casualties. The humans have military-grade equipment and training." "Sir, 2 of our transports have been destroyed." "Sir, they have captured Transport 7 with all crew aboard." "How many humans are down there?" Zektar demanded. 847 according to our records, sir." 800 humans are destroying 1,000 Vorthak warriors? "Sir, I think these are not ordinary humans. On the surface, the battle was nearly over. Vorthak warriors who had expected easy slaughter found themselves outmatched by opponents who fought with cold professional skill. The humans took no unnecessary risks and wasted no ammunition. They moved like machines designed for war. Daeho coordinated the defense from the community center, which had revealed itself as a sophisticated command post. Screens showed him every corner of the battle. Communications links connected him to each fighting position. He watched his people work and felt pride mixed with sadness. They had hoped never to fight again. But when war came to their home, they remembered everything they had learned in darker years. "Mi Young, how are the shields holding?" "Steady at 98%. Their weapons can't penetrate our generators." "Taewong, what is the status on captured equipment?" "We have taken 2 transports intact and disabled a 3rd. Also captured 37 enemy soldiers alive." "Excellent. Kyungsoo, any word from their ships?" "They are preparing for orbital bombardment. Heavy weapons this time. Daeho looked at his screens. The Vorthak ground force was broken. Most of their warriors were dead or captured, but the ships above still had enough firepower to crack the planet's crust if they chose to use it. "Signal the destroyers," he said. War Commander, Zektar received the transmission with growing rage. The same human voice that had been so annoyingly polite before. "War Commander, this is Daeho again. We have defeated your ground forces and captured your surviving warriors. We are treating them well according to standard military conventions. We suggest you withdraw your ships and open negotiations for their return." "You dare threaten the Vorthak Empire?" "We threaten no one, War Commander. We are simply farmers who wish to be left in peace, but we will defend our home if necessary." Zektar cut the transmission and turned to his weapons officer. "Prepare the planet crackers. I want that village turned into a crater 10 kilometers wide." "Sir, are you certain? Our own warriors are still down there. They failed. They are already dead to the Empire." As the Vorthak ships charged their heaviest weapons, something new appeared on their sensors. Energy signatures rising from the planet's surface. Not defensive shields this time, but offensive weapons. Mi Young's voice came over the communications array from her workshop. "Daeho, the orbital defense platforms are online and targeted." "What platforms?" Zektar screamed at his sensor operator. "Sir, massive weapons are emerging from the planet's surface. They were completely hidden until now. What had looked like hills and forests around New Hanbok Village were opening like flowers. Weapons platforms that dwarfed anything on the Vorthak ships rose into firing position. The humans had not just hidden a military base, they had hidden an entire planetary defense network. The first human volley struck Destroyer 2 amidships and cut it in half. The second volley disabled Destroyer 3's engines and left it drifting helplessly. Zektar's own ship shuddered under impacts that overloaded its shields and cracked its armor. "Sir, we must retreat. The humans have superior firepower." "Impossible. They are farmers." "Sir, with respect, they are clearly not farmers." War Commander Zektar looked at his tactical display and saw 3 human destroyers had been reduced to 1 crippled ship and burning wreckage. His 1,000 warriors were dead or captured. His reputation was destroyed, all by a village of 847 humans who grew rice and vegetables. "Surrender," he said quietly. "Sir, signal our surrender before they finish us completely." Daeho's voice came through the speakers one final time. "War Commander, your ships are welcome to land for repairs and medical attention. We will discuss terms for the return of your people over dinner. I hope you like rice." The news traveled faster than light across human space. One small farming village had destroyed a Vorthak death fleet. 847 humans had defeated an invasion force that could have leveled cities. The impossible had happened, on a quiet world where people grew rice and raised children. Kyung-soo sat in his communications center and watched the galaxy react. His hidden transmission arrays were powerful enough to reach every human colony within 50 light years. The battle recordings he had sent out were spreading from world to world like wildfire. "Colony ships are changing course to avoid Vorthak patrols," he reported to Daeho. 3 mining stations have gone dark to hide from enemy scouts, and the resistance cells on occupied worlds are asking for tactical data. Daeho looked tired. The battle had been won, but now came the harder task of dealing with victory. "What about the government?" "Earth Central Command wants a full report. Admiral Morrison is demanding to know how a farming colony acquired military-grade weapons. And Colonial Security is asking questions about our background files." "Let them ask. We were honest about who we were when we settled here." "Honest about being veterans, yes. Not honest about which veterans." Through the window, Daeho could see the captured Vorthak destroyer sitting in what had been Farmer Lee's wheat field. The alien ship looked strange and threatening next to the peaceful farmhouses. Repair crews were already working to understand its technology. War Commander Zektar sat in the village community center along with 36 of his surviving warriors. The building had been converted into a temporary prison, but the humans treated their captives well. 3 meals a day, medical care for the wounded, even entertainment broadcasts from the communication array. Xi Jin finished checking the last injured Vorthak and packed away her medical supplies. The aliens healed quickly, but their injuries had been severe. Human weapons were more effective than Vorthak armor had been designed to handle. "How are our guests doing?" Daeho asked. "Physically, they will recover. Mentally, they are struggling with what happened. Their entire worldview has been challenged. What do you mean? They were taught that humans are weak prey animals. Easy to hunt and kill. Now they have been defeated by what they thought was a defenseless farming village. It is causing some psychological stress. Daeho nodded. He remembered that feeling from his own early battles. The moment when your assumptions about reality proved completely wrong. Outside the village, life continued with strange normalcy. Children played in the streets while their parents worked in fields that had recently been battlegrounds. The damaged sections of buildings were already being repaired. Broken farm equipment was being replaced. But now everyone knew the truth about New Hanbok Village. Mi Young emerged from her workshop covered in alien lubricants and holding Vorthak technology. The captured destroyer had provided a treasure trove of advanced equipment, weapons systems, shield generators, faster-than-light communication arrays. Their tech is impressive, she told Daeho. More advanced than standard human military issue, but their design philosophy is interesting. Everything built for overwhelming force rather than efficiency. Can we use it? Already am. I have integrated their shield matrices with our defensive grid, and their weapon systems could be adapted for our own ships. What ships? Mi Young smiled. The ones we are going to build. That evening brought visitors. A transport ship landed in the field next to the captured destroyer. It carried representatives from 3 human colonies and a delegation from the Inner Worlds Coalition. They wanted to know how a farming village had accomplished the impossible. Admiral Yu Jin met them at the landing pad. She wore her old uniform for the first time in 7 years. The stars on her collar caught the setting sunlight, and her bearing was unmistakably military despite the peaceful surroundings. "Welcome to New Hanbok Village," she said. "I am Admiral Yu Jin, retired, currently serving as livestock coordinator." The visiting officials looked confused. A full admiral managing cattle and sheep on a farming colony seemed absurd, but the evidence of recent battle was scattered around them. Weapon craters in the fields, destroyed enemy equipment, the captured destroyer looming like a metal mountain. "Admiral, we need to understand what happened here," said the coalition representative. "Our intelligence says this is a civilian agricultural settlement." "It is," Yu Jin replied. "We grow excellent rice, also vegetables and some fruit trees. Would you like a tour?" The tour that followed revealed the dual nature of New Hanbok Village. On the surface, it was exactly what it claimed to be. Farms and families living simple lives far from the troubles of the galaxy. But underneath lay something much more dangerous. General Tae-Wung showed them the weapon manufacturing facilities hidden beneath his blacksmith shop. The forges that shaped farming tools by day could produce military hardware by night. The innocent-looking barn held enough firepower to arm a regiment. Sung Min led them through the library where tactical manuals were hidden among books about crop rotation and livestock care. His reading room contained detailed intelligence files on Vorthak military capabilities going back 20 years. Yoonji walked them past the school where children learned mathematics and literature. She did not mention that the playground equipment could be converted into defensive positions in under 10 minutes, or that the art supplies included enough explosive materials to level a city block. "We are farmers," Daeho explained as they gathered in the community center. "But we were other things before we came here. When the government offered land grants to veterans, we thought it would be peaceful. A quiet place to raise families and grow crops." "What changed?" asked the coalition representative. "Nothing changed. We always knew this was a dangerous galaxy. We just hoped our war days were over." "And when they were not?" "We defended our home, same as anyone would." The visiting officials spent 3 days in New Hanbok Village. They interviewed residents and studied battle recordings. They examined captured Vorthak equipment and reviewed the defensive systems. Their final report would reshape human military policy for the next decade. But they were not the only visitors. Refugee ships began arriving within the week. Families fleeing Vorthak raids, survivors from destroyed colonies, veterans who had heard about the impossible victory and wanted to join the fight. The village population doubled in a month, then tripled. New settlements sprang up around the original farms. Construction crews worked day and night to build housing and infrastructure. Dong Hyun supervised the expansion from his position as village engineer. On the surface, he managed water systems and power grids. Below ground, he was installing something much more ambitious, a planetary defense network that would make New Hanbok Village the most heavily fortified world in human space. How long for the gravity manipulators? Daeho asked during one of their private meetings. 6 months for basic installation. Another year to full operational capacity. But even the basic system will be enough to trap entire fleets in orbit. And the underground facilities? Shipyards will be ready in 8 months. We can start with small vessels and work up to capital ships. The manufacturing base will take longer, but we have the raw materials. Messages continued to pour in from across human space. Some brought requests for military aid. Others offered resources and volunteers. A few carried warnings about Vorthak fleet movements in nearby sectors. Kyung-soo tracked it all from his expanding communications center. The simple radio equipment he had used to monitor shipping traffic was being replaced by military-grade arrays capable of real-time communication across dozens of star systems. "The Vorthak High Command is mobilizing," he reported to the village council. "Intelligence sources say they are assembling a major fleet. Estimated 200 ships minimum." "Target?" asked Tai Wung. "Unknown, but probably us. We have become a symbol of human resistance. Every successful raid against Vorthak forces is being attributed to our example. How long do we have?" "Conservative estimate? 6 months. Possibly less if they prioritize this operation." The council meeting that night lasted until dawn. Old soldiers and farmers sat around a table covered with star charts and tactical displays. They planned for a war that none of them wanted, but all of them knew was coming. "We cannot evacuate 8,000 people without being detected," Eugene pointed out. "And even if we could, where would we go? Every human world is a potential target now." "We stay and fight," said Daeho. "Same as before. 8,000 civilians against 200 warships? Not civilians. Not anymore." He was right. The refugees who had come to New Hanbok Village were not ordinary colonists. They were veterans and engineers and specialists who had lost their homes to Vorthak raids. They came seeking safety, but they brought skills and knowledge and, above all, a burning desire for revenge. The village that had once hidden 800 retired soldiers now openly housed the largest concentration of human military talent outside of Earth itself. Former admirals worked alongside ex-commandos. Weapons designers shared workshops with starship engineers. Intelligence analysts traded information with special forces operators. What had begun as a peaceful farming colony was becoming the headquarters of human resistance. And when the Vorthak Empire finally came in force, they would find their enemies ready and waiting. The Vorthak Armada emerged from hyperspace like a storm of metal and death. 200 warships arranged in perfect battle formation. Destroyers and cruisers and massive dreadnoughts that carried enough firepower to sterilize entire star systems. At their head flew the personal flagship of War Premier Thokvar himself. The Premier stood on his command bridge and looked down at the small blue world that had humiliated his empire. Kepler 442b hung in space like a jewel, but Thokvar saw only a target that needed to be eliminated. This time there would be no mistakes, no survivors, no witnesses. "Status report," he commanded. "Sir, all ships report ready for action. Orbital bombardment platforms are charged and targeting the human settlements. Ground forces are prepared for planetary assault." "And the human defenses?" "Minimal, sir. We detect the same defensive shields that protected their village before. Some weapon emplacements around the main settlement. Nothing that should threaten our fleet." Thokvar studied the tactical displays with growing satisfaction. The humans had expanded their little village, but it still looked pathetically vulnerable. A few thousand soft creatures hiding behind energy barriers that his fleet could shatter with concentrated fire. "They learned nothing from their previous victory," he said. "Arrogance has made them careless." On the planet's surface, New Hanbok Village appeared exactly as the Vorthak sensors reported. Peaceful farms stretching across fertile valleys. Small towns connected by simple roads. Children playing in schoolyards while their parents worked in the fields. Daeho stood in the community center that still served as the village command post. Around him, screens showed the positions of every enemy ship. 200 vessels arranged in 3 assault groups with supporting elements spread across the system. "They are taking the bait perfectly," reported Kyung-soo from his communications station. The Premier's flagship is exactly where we predicted. And our hidden assets? All. Ships report ready. The gravity net is charged and standing by. Ground forces are in position. Mi Young looked up from her engineering displays. Planetary shields at full strength. Orbital defense platforms masked and ready. We can maintain the deception for another few hours before they start active scanning. Daeho nodded and touched the communication control. Time to play his part in this deadly theater. Vorthak Fleet, this is New Hanbok Village. We see your ships. We again respectfully decline any aggressive action against our home. War Premier Thokvar's reply came immediately. His voice carried rage that had been building for months. Human insects, your previous luck has ended. Today, the Vorthak Empire will erase your miserable settlement and everyone in it. Prepare for total annihilation. We appreciate your position, Premier, but we must again choose to remain here. This is our home, and we will defend it. Defend with what? Your pathetic shields will not stop my fleet. Perhaps not. But we will try. Thokvar cut the transmission and turned to his weapons officer. Begin orbital bombardment. I want that village turned to ash and glass. The Vorthak fleet opened fire as one. Energy beams lanced down from orbit like pillars of destruction. Plasma cannons and fusion torpedoes followed in waves that could have cracked continents. The firepower directed at New Hanbok Village would have been sufficient to destroy the largest human military bases. The defensive shields flared and held. Blue energy barriers absorbed the incredible punishment and dispersed it harmlessly into space. Buildings that should have been vaporized remained standing peacefully among their farms and gardens. Impossible, Thokvar snarled. Increase firepower. All ships concentrate on the main settlement. Sir, we are already firing at maximum capacity. Their shields are absorbing everything we can deliver. Then we go to the surface. Launch all ground forces. I want 50,000 warriors on that planet within the hour. Transport ships poured from the Vorthak fleet like angry insects. Each one carried 100 warriors armed with the finest weapons the Empire could provide. 50,000 soldiers was enough force to conquer most human worlds. Against one farming village, it should have been overwhelming. The transports entered the atmosphere and began their descent toward landing zones around New Hanbok Village. Their pilots followed standard assault doctrine and spread out to prevent concentrated defensive fire. They had learned from the previous defeat and would not be caught in killing fields again. What they had not learned was that the previous battle had been a test, a rehearsal for something much larger. Now, said Daeho quietly. Dong-hyun activated the planetary gravity manipulation system. The effect was invisible but devastating. Artificial gravity fields reached out from hidden generators buried deep in the planet's crust. Every Vorthak ship in orbit suddenly found itself caught in carefully shaped gravitational wells that pulled them into predetermined positions. Sir, we are experiencing navigation anomalies, reported the Premier's flight officer. Our position is shifting despite engine corrections. Fix it. Sir, I cannot. Some external force is moving our ships. On the tactical display, Thokvar watched. His perfect battle formation dissolve into chaos. His ships were being herded like livestock into clusters that made no strategic sense. Vessels that should have been spread across the system found themselves grouped together in tight formations. Admiral Jae-min, the fleet is in position, reported Kyung-soo. Around the edges of the Kepler system, human warships dropped their stealth fields and appeared on sensors like ghosts, becoming solid. Not the handful of vessels the Vorthak expected, but hundreds of ships, cruisers and destroyers and carriers loaded with fighter squadrons. The humans had been gathering their fleet for months, using the captured Vorthak destroyer as a coordination point. Ships had arrived secretly from across human space. Veterans had come out of retirement to crew vessels that officially did not exist. The largest human military operation since the Earth Wars had been planned and executed from a farming village. Sir, human ships are appearing throughout the system, the sensor operator reported with barely controlled panic. Estimated 400 vessels minimum. They have us surrounded. War Premier Thokvar felt ice forming in his blood. His fleet was trapped in artificial gravity wells with enemies on all sides. The humans had turned his overwhelming advantage into a death trap. How did they hide so many ships? Unknown, sir. Our intelligence indicated minimal human presence in this system. Intelligence was wrong. The human attack began with surgical precision. Squadrons of fighters launched from hidden carriers and swept through Vorthak formations like schools of deadly fish. Their weapons targeted shield generators and engine systems with accuracy that spoke of detailed knowledge of Vorthak ship design. Admiral Yu Jin coordinated the assault from her flagship hidden behind one of the system's outer moons. She had commanded fleets before, but never one assembled from so many different sources. Colonial defense forces worked alongside Earth Navy vessels. Merchant Marine captains flew beside veteran fighter pilots. What they lacked in unified doctrine, they made up for in motivation. Target their command ships first, she ordered. Cut off their coordination and the fleet will fragment. Pilot Sora led the first fighter attack against the Premier's flagship. Her squadron had been disguised as a simple cargo hauler until the battle began. Now they flew the fastest interceptors human technology could produce. Remember, they cannot maneuver effectively while caught in the gravity wells, she told her pilots. Use that advantage. The Vorthak fleet tried to respond, but found themselves fighting at a severe disadvantage. Their ships were locked into positions chosen by their enemies. Their superior firepower meant nothing when they could not bring weapons to bear effectively. Transport ships carrying ground forces found themselves under attack before they could land. Human fighters swept through the formations and destroyed hundreds of vessels loaded with Vorthak warriors. Those that did reach the surface faced defenders who had been waiting for months. The ground battle was even more one-sided than the space engagement. Vorthak warriors, expecting to fight farmers instead, encountered the largest concentration of human military specialists outside Earth itself. Former Special Forces operators led squads of veterans through terrain that had been prepared for this exact battle. Yuanji triggered the first wave of explosive charges that turned landing zones into craters. Sungmin and his sniper teams picked off Vorthak officers from concealed positions that offered perfect fields of fire. Tai Wung led armored units equipped with captured alien technology that gave them crushing advantages in direct combat. Within 6 hours, the Vorthak ground forces were completely destroyed. The survivors who managed to reach New Hanbok village found themselves facing weapons emplacements that had been designed specifically to counter their tactics and equipment. In space, the battle lasted longer, but the outcome was never in doubt. Human ships used the gravity manipulation system to herd Vorthak vessels into killing zones where concentrated fire could overwhelm their defenses. One by one, the mighty warships of the Empire were disabled or destroyed. War Premier Thokvar watched his fleet die around him. 200 ships reduced to burning wreckage and drifting hulks. 50,000 warriors dead or captured. The pride of the Vorthak Empire broken by humans who grew vegetables and raised livestock. Sir, the humans are demanding our surrender. The surrender ceremony took place in the same community center where the first Vorthak prisoners had been held months earlier. War Premier Thokvar sat at a simple wooden table across from Daeho, while representatives from both sides witnessed the end of an empire. The documents were written in 3 languages: Standard Human, Vorthak Imperial, and the trade pidgin used by merchants throughout the galaxy. The terms were surprisingly generous, considering the scope of the Vorthak defeat. All Vorthak military forces will cease hostile operations against human settlements, Daeho read aloud. All occupied human worlds will be returned to civilian control within 60 standard days. War criminals will be turned over to human authorities for trial. Thokvar listened with the hollow expression of someone who had lost everything he believed in. His empire stretched across 40 star systems and had dominated this region of space for over 1,000 years. Now it was being dissolved by farmers who served tea during ceasefire negotiations. The Vorthak High Council will formally recognize human sovereignty over all previously contested territories, the document continued. Reparations will be paid to human colonies damaged by Imperial forces. A permanent peace treaty will be negotiated within 1 standard year. And if my government refuses these terms? Thokvar asked. Then we will impose them by force, replied Admiral Yu Jin. She wore her dress uniform for the ceremony, and the stars on her collar caught the afternoon light, streaming through the windows. Your empire has no functional military remaining premier. Resistance would be suicide. It was true. The destruction of the invasion fleet had left the Vorthak Empire defenseless. Their finest ships were burning wreckage in orbit around a farming world. Their most experienced warriors were dead or in human custody. What remained was a government without the power to enforce its will. "How did you hide so many ships?" Thokvar asked. "Our intelligence indicated this was a minor agricultural settlement." "It is," Deho replied. "We grow excellent crops and raise fine livestock, but we also happen to be retired military personnel who value our privacy." "Retired? What were your previous positions?" "I was a colonel in Earth Special Forces. Admiral Yujin commanded the 7th Fleet during the Titan campaign. General Taiwung planned the Mars liberation. We are all veterans who chose farming over continued service." Thokvar looked around the room at the humans who had destroyed his empire. They appeared so ordinary, middle-aged men and women in simple clothes sitting in a building that doubled as a village meeting hall. Yet between them, they represented centuries of military experience and tactical knowledge. "You could have conquered half the galaxy with such commanders," he said. "We prefer growing rice," Deho replied. The signing completed, Admiral Yujin stood and activated a communication device. "All human forces, this is Admiral Yujin. The Vorthak Empire has formally surrendered. Commence Operation Harvest immediately. Operation E." Harvest had been planned for months in the workshops and meeting halls of New Hanbok Village. Human fleets that had been hidden throughout the region emerged from concealment and began systematic liberation of occupied worlds. The same coordination that had trapped the Vorthak invasion fleet now guided the conquest of an empire. Min Ho coordinated the intelligence operations from his expanded greenhouse facility. What had appeared to be a simple vegetable garden actually contained the most comprehensive database of Vorthak military assets in human space. Every fortress, every supply depot, every administrative center had been mapped and analyzed. "Vorthak defense forces are surrendering without resistance," he reported to the command staff. "Most garrisons received orders to cooperate with human occupation forces. The transition is proceeding ahead of schedule." "Any holdouts?" asked Taiwung. "3 systems are maintaining communication silence, possibly trying to organize resistance, but their forces are too scattered to present a real threat." Sora led the fighter squadrons that established air superiority over formerly occupied worlds. Her pilots flew ships built in the hidden factories beneath New Hanbok Village, using technology captured from defeated enemies. They met no organized resistance. "The Vorthak military is completely broken," she reported after securing the industrial world of Kepler Prime. "Most of their personnel are requesting asylum rather than attempting to fight. Within 30 days, human forces controlled 40 star systems and 300 inhabited worlds. The Vorthak Empire that had seemed so powerful just months before collapsed like a house built from paper. Without their military, the aliens had no way to maintain control over their vast territories. Refugees poured into human space by the millions, former slaves liberated from Vorthak labor camps, conquered populations who had lived under alien rule for generations, species that had been clients of the Empire and now sought protection from their former masters. New Hanbok Village became the administrative center for the largest territorial expansion in human history. The community center that had hosted village meetings now coordinated the governance of hundreds of worlds. The communication arrays that Kyung-Soo had used to monitor shipping traffic now managed interstellar government operations. "We need to establish civil administrations on 40 worlds," reported the Colonial Affairs liaison who had arrived from Earth. "Plus refugee settlement programs, plus war crimes tribunals. The logistical requirements are staggering." Deho looked tired. Leading a farming village had been simple compared to managing an interstellar empire. "What resources do we have?" "Every human colony is sending personnel and supplies. The colonial administration is mobilizing the largest civilian operation in our history, but it will take years to properly integrate all these new territories." "And the Vorthak population?" "Mixed. Some systems want complete human control. Others are requesting autonomous status under human protection. A few are asking for relocation assistance to move beyond human space entirely. The hardest decisions involved justice. Vorthak war criminals had committed atrocities across dozens of worlds. Over centuries of conquest, human populations demanded trials and punishment. But the sheer scale of the crimes made comprehensive justice almost impossible. Hye Jin found herself appointed to head the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Her medical background proved valuable when dealing with survivors of Vorthak brutality. Her steady temperament helped navigate the complex emotions surrounding forgiveness and revenge. "We cannot prosecute every Vorthak who participated in their empire," she explained to a gathering of human survivors. "The numbers are too large and the evidence too scattered. But we can ensure the worst criminals face justice and prevent future atrocities." War Premier Thokvar proved surprisingly cooperative during his interrogation. Faced with the complete collapse of everything he had served, he provided detailed information about Vorthak operations throughout their former empire. His testimony helped identify the locations of mass graves and secret prisons. "Why are you helping us?" Deho asked during one of their sessions. "Because my empire is dead," Thokvar replied. "And because you showed mercy when you could have shown vengeance. Perhaps humans are not the prey animals we thought you were. We never were. The first year of human administration established basic order throughout the former Vorthak territories. Colonial governors took control of major worlds, while local populations elected representatives to transitional councils. Trade routes reopened under human protection. Refugees began the long process of rebuilding their shattered lives. New Hanbok village itself returned gradually to its agricultural roots. The weapon factories were scaled back to maintenance levels. The orbital defense platforms remained, but were supplemented by civilian space traffic control systems. Children who had grown up during wartime began attending schools focused on normal subjects rather than military training. But the village never forgot what it had accomplished. The sign at the village entrance was replaced with a larger version that reflected their new status. New Hanbok Village, population 12,000. Administrative capital of the Free Territories, established 2387. Rice Festival every October. Please wipe your feet. Deho stood in his rice fields on the 5th anniversary of the first Vorthak attack. The paddies stretched toward the horizon exactly as they had years before. Water reflected the sky and small fish swam between the green shoots. It could have been any peaceful morning on any farming world, except for the monument. A simple stone marker stood where the first enemy transport had crashed. The inscription was written in human and Vorthak languages. "Here fell the first Vorthak warriors to attack New Hanbok village. May they rest in peace, and may their sacrifice teach wisdom to future generations." Mi Young joined him among the rice plants. She still worked in her mechanical shop, though now her projects included starship maintenance for the growing human fleet. Her hands were still covered in grease, and her hair was still tied back in a practical knot. "Any regrets?" she asked. Deho considered the question while watching the sunrise paint the fields in golden light. "About the war? No. We defended our home and freed millions of people from oppression. About becoming an empire? Sometimes. It was not supposed to happen this way. No. We were supposed to be simple farmers growing crops and raising families. But the galaxy had other plans.